Welcome to the Boomer Briefing Podcast, where we help you solve a critical business issue in 20 minutes or less. I'm your host, Jon Hubbard, shareholder and chief growth officer here at Boomer Consulting. And the topic I'm looking forward to speaking to you about today is around business development. Really, the collaboration and the coordination of your marketing and sales. You know, we're so afraid of the S word in our profession, sales, that we often refer to it as business development. But when we do that, we then isolate marketing as separate from business development, separate from developing business. But in reality, the future of your firm is really tied to, or at least alongside of, the superpower of marketing and sales working together to grow your firm. And when marketing and sales works together, then you develop business. So let's talk about that. Let's say you have a sales function happening in your business. Maybe it's just one individual, one partner, or maybe it's a small team or working group. And maybe you have a marketing leader. Maybe that's a marketing director, a marketing coordinator, chief marketing officer, something of that sort. Or maybe you're a firm that says, hey, it'd be really nice to have either of those functions, really. We could use either of those. This episode is going to be relevant to all of you there, no matter where you are on that continuum. But if you are looking to really coordinate sales and marketing, here's a few things we want to throw at you here and really have you think about. One is, it all starts with having a strategic plan in place. If you think about a functioning sales and marketing area of your business, if there's not a strategic plan in place, that the sales and marketing professionals, the sales and marketing teams can't look at and see and really align their objectives and strategies to, then you might be heading real quickly or investing to head real quickly in the wrong direction, or maybe in a direction that isn't really in line with your firm's future vision or plan. So number one, really start with having that strategic plan in place. All right. And we work with a lot of firms to help them develop their strategic plans. And this leads to point number two. We will take a look at their plans, or maybe a plan they've created in the past, and we will see that there are no revenue goals associated with that strategic plan. Now, a strategic plan is certainly larger than just revenue goals. But if you don't have revenue goals associated with it, it can be really hard to have your sales and marketing teams rally around the plan in a real tangible way that they can positively impact. Okay, and when I talk about revenue goals, what I mean is more than just let's grow 5% next year, or let's grow 10% next year. Maybe it starts there in the thinking. But really, okay, if we were to grow 10% next year and we wanted to achieve that organically, where is that growth coming from? You know, I was working with a firm just the other day. They have 20 service lines that they are wanting to grow, and they have a larger objective of organic growth of somewhere between 10 and 15%. Well, where is that revenue across those 20 service lines? How is that 10% going to be distributed? Do we want all of those service lines to grow 10%? Do we anticipate one service line to grow 50% and maybe another service line to only grow 5%? What is the strategy there? We need, as firm leaders, we need to be able to break down our revenue goals per service line and say, this is where you're going to contribute to the organic growth in our firm. Okay. Some reasons we don't do that, or at least reasons that we see as we're out working with firms, is firms can be afraid to put a stake in the sand, as we call it, to say, you know what, we're not exactly sure where it's going to end up, but we're not going to be afraid. to put a stake in the sand and say, this is where we think this service line can get to next year from a revenue perspective. Okay? Because one reason we're hesitant to do that is we might be wrong. But be willing to be wrong and experience the benefits of putting a stake in the sand. Okay? So really, let's set those revenue goals and let's break them down per service line or industry group so the leaders of those areas and the sales and marketing teams or professionals you have to support those can say, all right, this is how we can best allocate resources and this is how we can best drive that growth. Now, once you have your 1, strategic plan in place, 2, have clear revenue goals of how they're broken down. Number 3 is about developing that roadmap. Okay. What is the actual business development roadmap needed per service line in order to experience the growth you want in those service lines? Sometimes we kind of think about all service lines within our firm as equal or needing the same strategy in order to drive business. I can tell you that that is certainly not the case. You almost need to treat, for the most part, each service line as their own unique service, and how you develop a strategy for them in terms of what they're going to be doing to acquire that new business may be completely different than the service down the hall. Okay. And so this is really where we want to try and start to move away from one approach will serve all to how do we tailor and customize and really target the strategy we're using for the service line for it to experience the growth. So a couple things, John, how do we do that? That sounds great. Sounds like a lot of work, but how do we do that? How do we actually target or maybe best focus on growth strategies per service line? Well, I think it does start with the target client. Okay. I think it does start with saying, who is our target prospect or target client for this service line? And what are the best channels for reaching that target client? Again, what works for one service line may be completely irrelevant to another service line. But start with a target client per service line, and what are the best channels for reaching those target clients? Okay. So we could spend a whole episode on that, but that is really kind of the third thing there, developing that business development roadmap. Okay. So we've talked about developing a strategic plan. 2, developing setting the revenue goals and breaking those down so they can be helpful to various service lines. 3 is developing that business development roadmap per service line. Well, 4 is we're going to say, let's really take a look at the messaging that is being used in each of these service lines to attract the attention of the target clients or the target prospects. Okay. And I know this can sound lofty and sound a little hard to get our arms around of how do we review the messaging? But let me just touch on a few points for you that I think will have high impact. Too often, if you're looking to grow a service, and I go to your firm's website or I look at some of your sales and marketing collateral for that service line, I can tell that it was written, and no offense, it was written by a CPA potentially or by an expert in that service line. And I can tell that because as I read it, I can tell that it was written for another expert, another CPA, another thought leader in that service line. It's not written for a prospect or a client. Okay. And so we have to reframe how we even think about the messaging that we put out to the marketplace per service line. We need to put messaging out that is relevant to the audience that we are looking to attract, that talks about their problems that they have. Too often we talk a lot about our solutions and our expertise, and we don't spend enough time talking about our clients' problems. Okay. that they have. They don't care about your expertise yet. They don't care about your knowledge. What they care about is the fact that you're talking about their problems or you're talking about them. So how do we evolve our messaging, to do that so we can actually get a chance at the right time to talk about how we can solve those problems? Okay, so we need to talk about the problems. We need to talk about the types of solutions we can provide those to their problems. And we need to talk about what success looks like for them. Okay, so really reviewing that messaging of how you are reaching out to your prospective clients is huge. Now, the fifth thing is communicating regularly internally with each other around the pursuit of these revenue goals and of these strategies. This should not be when we have time, we'll throw some time on the calendar and we'll meet, and then we'll have some sort of pipeline meeting. And for those that are listening and not watching the video, I'm doing air quotes here around pipeline meeting, because we all know how most of those go, where people just sit around and say, well, here's a couple things that a couple deals I'm working on that maybe we haven't followed up with in a couple months, and we need to circle back on that and reach back out. And no, we need a set cadence in place for when we're going to get together and say, how are we in the pursuit of those revenue goals? Where do we need to be? Where are we today? How are we pursuing those target clients? How are we leveraging the channels to reach those clients and those prospects? And do we have a solid pipeline in place? And we need sales and marketing work together. We need marketing to hear what sales is talking about. We need sales to hear what marketing is talking about. This is where we start to get that really coordination between the two. There's absolutely no reason for sales to be, going to events and trying to have certain conversations with prospective clients, and marketing is out sending a different message to a different set of prospective clients, talking about something completely different. We need to be in lockstep with one another. The left hand needs to know what the right hand is doing and vice versa. All right. So this is where really that strategy starts to be collaborative. All right. So that brings us to our time for this episode, but a quick recap for you. This was about business development, the coordination of your marketing and sales strategies. And we're talking about 5 big things that your firm needs to be doing in order to make sure you get the most out of your sales and marketing. 1, it's starting with that strategic plan, that firm-wide strategic plan. 2, it's having clear set revenue goals that break down by kind of putting a stake in the sand. This is where we think we can experience this growth across these service lines. We need to develop a business development roadmap. That's 3, in accordance to those revenue goals that help us get there. We need to review the messaging that we are using as we are, promoting the firm to the marketplace. And number 5, we need to be meeting and communicating internally regularly so we are in lockstep with one another. I hope you found this topic useful. If you enjoyed it, we release new episodes every Tuesday morning. This week it was on growth. Next week it may be on talent, leadership, process, or technology, but the common theme among all of those topics is that they are relevant and crucial to your firm's success. Thanks so much for listening, and please subscribe.